Before the interview starts, I'd like to quickly mention that this is part 2 of a video I originally made 2 years ago about the history of Point Roberts. Context for many of the topics we'll be discussing does matter, and I highly recommend you guys check out part 1 before checking out part 2. And so the link for that video will be in the description. Also, at the end of the video, I'll be sharing a resource on how you could better help and support the declining opportunities and economy of Point Roberts. Please consider subscribing as it really helps my itty bitty tiny channel, and let the interview start. Mr. Cowder, it's been 2 years that we've last talked, and so I just got to know, what is the status of Point Roberts?
Well, as you remember, last time you were here, it was pretty quiet. And that was because we never recovered fully from the lockdown in March 2020 for 20 months. And we came back about 70% of what we were prior to the lockdown. But we never achieved more than 70%. And then a year ago, we got hit with tariffs and the White House anti-Canadian threats, threatened their sovereignty and insulted them. And they don't take that very well, just like Americans wouldn't take it very well if a shoe was on the other foot. And so they're emotional and patriotic as well. So their retaliation is don't shop in the United States. And so we lost another 25% of our participants. And as you know, when you were here, 70% of our properties here are owned by Canadians. 90% of our economy is driven by Canadians. And Canadians generously provide all our potable water and our electricity, and they process our septic waste. So they're our best friend, and now that's threatened. So they're staying away in droves, and that's their way of protesting Mr. Trump.
I wanted to mention, so when Trump got into office, the first thing I started focusing on was tariffs, and my first thought was Point Roberts as well as other exclaves across America. And I was in Ottawa during that time. I went to go visit Ottawa, and I saw this big protest outside where they were kind of just throwing shots at the United States. They didn't like Donald Trump and the tariff war that he was starting up. I don't think the Canadians like the Americans a lot. And I got to talk to some of the people, and it's kind of sad seeing people that have nothing to do with politics having to get involved because you have someone in the Oval Office, entirely different country, just harassing you quite literally. And so just seeing this happening to Point Roberts, and that you guys are paying the consequences for his words, it is just a true embarrassment for the current administration. I was looking at the statistics, and I'll pull them up right now. The Bureau of Transportation statistics, 2019, you guys had a very high number, and it has dropped tremendously low. And it leaves me speechless. That's why I reached out to you, and I am just worried for Point Roberts and what might come of it.
Well, half of our people here, including me, are dual Canadian US citizens. We have both passports. So half our population here is Canadian, the residents that live here, about 1,000 people. So 500 of them have dual status. So half our families are on the Canadian side and half of them are on the American side. And the Peace Arch was in Blaine for a reason, because the cooperation between Canada, British Columbia, and Washington State primarily, but Oregon also, has been a bond for 150 years. That's why they built the Peace Arch. And it says, "Children of a common mother, may these gates never close." And that's all out the window and threatened. Now it's been undermined. But that's how we got British Columbia to give us access to water, power, and effluent waste proposal in their tertiary treatment plant. And on top of that, of course, 70% of our properties. You could argue that Canada owns Point Roberts now. I mean, where else in North America is 70% of the property owned by, quote, foreigners? Where else is 90% of the economy of any other town in North America supplied economically by foreigners. And so you look at that and you go, boy, this is unique indeed. And the decision made to create Point Roberts was made by people in 180 years ago in 1846 who had never been here. They just drew a line and they cut off this little piece of land, 5 square miles of dirt that's attached to Delta, BC, British Columbia, and didn't even give it a thought. And so we lack so much discipline and sophistication, we've never reviewed it. Now, why not? I mean, we review everything else. We can fly to the dark side of the moon and spend the money to do that. We can't even look to see if Point Roberts, the way it's configured now, is appropriate in 2026. Why not?
Yeah, and you know what? During the years that we talked, I believe I remember correctly, the Biden administration recently approved the $8 billion of taxpayer dollars to Ukraine for aid, and so we're kind of seeing the same thing here. You know, Trump administration giving millions of dollars to Israel and other foreign countries, while Point Roberts still hasn't seen a dime from the looks of it. And I reached out to Mr. Oliver, who is the head of treasury for Whatcom County. So I wanted to mention this too, because I know I wrote it in my questions, but I actually got a response back and saying that he was open to discussion within next week if everything looks great. The problem is that he stopped responding to my emails after that one. So I do not know if I will be getting any other information. So it looks like I did in fact lose those $10 that we betted on. So
Well, if you do get a response, please tell us because they're not telling us anything.
yeah.
Our own county is supposed to be running us. We get better service out of Delta for water, power, and so forth. In fact, the city administrator came here last uh, July 3rd, just before July 4th, which surprised me. I didn't know why he was coming.
Hmm.
And he had a little meeting at the local community center.
Hmm.
So I went to it. There's about 70 of us there. It was a good turnout. We thought he was bringing us something. And he came to tell us that he'd just authorized buying a $50 million ferry for one of the Gulf Islands. And I said, well, where's ours? We'll take the 50 million. We don't want the ferry, but we'll take the 50 million. Oh, nothing for us. So I said, well, with the tariff situation and possible retaliation from Canada because they're upset and he's making them more upset, what about our water and power and supply? And he said, well, keep using your wells. I said, wells? We get water from Canada. We don't have any wells. He didn't know. I said, well, I guess electricity's out of the question for you to know that. Now, here's our own governance manager, head guy, doesn't know he knows now. So I told him in no uncertain terms. I mean, that's outrageous.
It is. And you brought up a good point. I don't think these guys realize the situation Point Roberts. I don't think anyone does, realistically. Mr. Stephen Oliver here, I reached out saying if he could share his financial and policy efforts that the county has made to support the peninsula. And he just completely dodged the question. He just said, hi, Frank, I am out of office until April 24th, but I will follow up with you upon my return. I reached out so I have a friend who works with Governor Ferguson, I believe, in Washington, and he works directly with his office. I asked my friend if he could do me the favor to see if he could just find anyone within his office to at least acknowledge Point Roberts' existence. And if I could just get an email back from him or anyone else in the office just saying that, hey, we're looking at Point Roberts, we're looking at their case, work in progress, give me an excuse at least. And I hadn't gotten anything. It's been a week. So it's just, I'm searching
On,
everywhere.
on that topic, Frank, I was Chamber of Commerce president when you were here last, and I've inquired of our management, Whatcom County. We send about $14 million a year in taxation over to you. Where does it go? Where's the discharge of that money? because I think we don't get anything back. So I was trying to say, give them a chance to say, oh yeah, we spent it here, there, and whatever. Oh, we don't separate that. We just throw it all into general revenue. Give me a break. We can push in our 98281 zip code and it'll give you that information in a heartbeat. No, 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 no. I said, well, what happened to full and complete disclosure when you ran for office? It was all full and complete disclosure. I'm asking for full and complete disclosure of the taxation, sales tax, property tax, gasoline tax, to show us where what comes in and what goes out and where it goes. No, 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 won't give it. Tried in freedom of information, denied. Well, I hired a law firm in Seattle because they're outside our district. So I thought a local lawyer might get influenced by the county, intimidated. So the Seattle firm tried for 4 months and finally said, the only way you'll be able to do it is a full-blown lawsuit. It'll take you 3 to 5 years and cost you $200,000. Well, guess who didn't do that? Me. So we still don't know anything. So that's why I bet you that $10 that you won't get it. And we'll see. Happy to give you the money if you get the information.
It'll be a lot more cheaper than going through lawyers.
Lot cheaper than the 10,000 I spent.
So yeah, I'm hoping, I'm just waiting for this date to come. I'm really hoping that Oliver reaches back out, and I will send him an email within these coming days, and I will keep bugging him just like I try to bug those at the governor office, but I can't get anything. And I want to speak to you on that too, of how desperate and how alone I think Point Roberts is in this fight. And I want to quote the Delta Optimist newsletter that I was reading that you sent over. And the writer says, I definitely feel empathy for the business owners and folks who live here full time in Point Roberts. But with all due respect, I think Mr. Calder needs to be asking the state and local governments of his country who pay their taxes for help. And they're right.
I sent one back to them and I said, she's right. And I've done that in spades. I mean, I've done it for a period of 7 years now with no effective result. And the response from Canada has always been much better and more positive and more helpful from British Columbia, and in particular Metro Vancouver and Delta, the municipality of Delta. And so I'm making the argument that Delta should take us over. I mean, they basically own us now in the sense of all their people own our property and provide our economy and our services, water, power, and so forth. What's wrong with if we don't want it, like Whatcom County and the state act as if they don't want us, except for the money we send them? Let's give it away, give it to Point Roberts. And there's a precedent. People say, oh, the United States takes places, but they never give anything up. There's a case under, if you look up in Wikipedia, that Texas in 1972 gave a place called Rio Rico to Mexico. It's right on the Rio Grande, which is it's their 49th parallel equivalent, divides Mexico from USA. And the river changed its configuration over time, way back turn of the century. And a professor discovered that in the 60s, and they agreed just to say, give the town to Mexico. And to this day, Mexico owns it. And the people who were Mexican U.S. citizenship, they gave them U.S. citizenship, said if you're a resident there and have been for a long time, that you can opt to have the citizenship for free or not. Take it or leave it, whatever you like. And so it worked. And so my main concern is, why aren't we looking at something? Like I said, if we can fly around the dark side of the moon, we can certainly look at an agreement that was put in 160 years ago and see if it's relevant today. And there may be another answer. It might be turn it into an international park, like the Peace Arch over in Blaine, Surrey, and have a commingle zone, you might say, where Americans and Canadians can commingle without having to go through being checked for citrus fruits or a bottle of wine or something at a border crossing.
Yeah, I remember when I crossed, they checked my backpack, make sure I wasn't crossing with fruits or anything. But I am 100% sure that the fruits at the local grocery store where you took me quite literally come from the British Columbia side. So it's a waste of quite.
Well, I get that citrus fruit issue for the rest of the border, particularly the south border, because Florida's economy relies on citrus fruits and orchards and so forth. We don't have any here. In fact, if we buy even in Canada or in Bellingham or Seattle citrus fruit and bring it through, it's being repatriated because it was grown in the United States in the first place. But
Exactly.
even if you bring it in, it's not going to contaminate any orchard because we don't have one.
No
So,
orchards, no cows, no
no,
farms, really.
no.
But I wanted to mention, so going back to Rio Rico, I am honestly shocked that you brought that up in the emails where we were talking because I actually visited Rio Rico. It's in the modern Mexican state now of Tampulas. And so it was super cool. I'm kind of just it's like a hobby of mine to visit these Escalades and see how they're holding up. And so I wanted to give you my firsthand experience of being in Rio Rico. And honestly, they're doing really fine. There's no signs of declining economy. There's no signs of decline of population, strugglement between both governments. And it is a place, a more touristy spot now for the southern Texans and northern Tampulan Mexicans. And it's just the fact that they coexist and it worked out. Why not Point Roberts? Uh,
Well, indeed. And if I'm going to make the case in my next, which I'd be happy to copy, argument that, okay, what would happen if we tried to do with Delta and give it to them? We would get, they would do really well by owning Point Roberts because it's annexed right to them. They've already got schools, fire department, water districts. They would just plug into here and take all the revenue from that, which they would deserve, and then start to do a proper development of Point Roberts, which is hamstrung by the county for the last 30 years. And to preserve our nature, which you've experienced here, of green and eco-friendly and all those good things with our 7 miles of foreshore, they'd gain a marina and a golf course. And the management of it before it was transferred to them to protect our local people would be a list on the title of the document of the land transfer that says no casinos, no high rises, height limitation of X feet, 40, whatever, 40 feet or whatever, and list a schedule of no disposition of park property, etc. And you could control the future, but there would be a future. This way, it's all under control, but there's no future because no one's investing a dime here. And I couldn't give you, if you said, Brian, where should I put $100,000 in Point Roberts? I'd say in the bank, not into anything here as a business or an investment property. Uh-uh.
yeah, the sad truth of Point Roberts is that business is declining. That right there is no mystery. Businesses are quite literally shutting down. And just when they were finally getting that foothold, post-pandemic, everything with the tariffs happens and it just throws everything off. We talked about how to manage the border of Point Roberts last time we spoke. We were kind of just cherry picking random ideas of, oh, maybe moving the international border all the way to the Strait of Georgia. That way, both people could just coexist. There's, get rid of that big border patrol. And then you recently sent me this map here that I'm looking at right now. Uh, do you care to explain how this map will better benefit Point Roberts if pulled off?
Well, basically, it makes it Canadian. It takes the line between White Rock over to my left here, between Blaine and us. So between Blaine, USA mainland, and us, Point Roberts off Delta,
Mhm.
That line cuts right through us. Well, I would say back it out to the middle of Boundary Bay and cut it over to Vancouver Island where it goes anyhow, and picks it up out at an apex out here. I'm pointing at it because I can see it right out my window here. And then Point Roberts is part of mainland British Columbia, and that solves it right now. It's part of Delta. And so that's the extremist one, but it's probably also the one that should have been done in 1846.
It
That's
should have.
what the long line should have, because everyone says, oh no, they want a straight line. Well, if you look at the Gulf Islands over here towards Vancouver Island, the line is all over the place. It's almost like a person who had been drinking put the line in.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It was so weird when I was there, because I was heading towards what was it, Victoria, and going from Victoria and all the other islands moving forward. It's just you never know which is which. You're either in Washington or you're in British Columbia.
Well,
So
the ferry you took uh, is in Canadian waters off Delta by the
yeah,
native lands there and the Tawasin Band. And you got on it in Canadian waters right at the dock. You backed out about 1,000 feet and you backed into American waters, and then you turned and away you went back in Canadian waters. So uh, if one was real goofy, they could say, "Oh, you backed into American waters. We better have all your passports and check you before you just."
it was, yeah, it was a little adventure going from Tassawan all the way to Victoria, and then Victoria, Seattle. It was just really interesting, but it was unique, and that's why I love Point Roberts, because, as you say, unique cases require unique solutions, and that's kind of just stuck with me as the years gone by.
That's what's missing, Frank. It's okay. We've got everyone now over the past 7 years. I've been on to all our politicians on federal, state, county, on the U.S. side, British Columbia, regional, and municipal on the Canadian side. Everyone, including right back to Ottawa, who gave us a special deal of access from a house met and for specifically for Point Robertson got us easier access during COVID, late on the end of it, but it was still appreciated. But acknowledgement. So they've all acknowledged we're unique. That begs the question, doesn't it? Where's our unique solution? Oh no, one size fits all. Whatever applies to any other border applies to you. All the same. Well, you just said we're unique.
Mm.
Like that's a bit of a conflict.
And they've been saying that for years.
It's like hat sizes. I got a big fat head, and I go into the hat shop, and I said, one size doesn't fit all, and they say, oh yeah. They look at me. I said, I'll bet you $1. The tabs don't even touch at the back on my big head, so
Yeah.
one size doesn't fit all.
And they'll look at that and they'll still tell you that that hat will fit you. And that's the problem, is that they'll seriously look at you and call you crazy for trying to say otherwise.
Yeah.
And it is it's just a shame. I was oh, I didn't even tell you this, but last time I was here, I went to Point Roberts with the mission of writing a kind of like a project proposal, and I was getting my outline ready, and that's why I studied. I read the book about the entire history of Point Roberts, and so I gathered all this information, even went in person to gather more detail and get interview with you. I go back to my university, I write my project, I write about the budget, the mismanagement, all of this, and I turn it in, and I get an F, because Point Roberts, by my assignment standards, I was supposed to do a breakdown of a county, the county's history. You didn't count. Point Roberts was not classified officially as part of Whatcom County, according to my professor. And so I ended up writing a different one. This one was actually for Rio Rico, which is why I went there instead.
Oh wow.
And so what do you think about that? The fact that Grand Canyon University considers Point Roberts as not part of Whatcom County.
Well, I would think they probably got that information from our own county. Uh, we don't matter to them either. I mean, anything unique I mean, the narrowness of the education system, university system, government agencies like the Border Commission we have here in the West Coast. There's representatives here. Some are at the Washington State University, also heads up our division here. Don't do anything. Don't do it. All regimented, one step in front of the other, same as we did yesterday. There's no original thought. There's no stepping outside the guidelines, or else you're fired, or you're suspended, or your report isn't accepted. I mean, it's bizarre. It's so mind-numbing, and they're places of education. Are you kidding me? You're indoctrinating. You're not educating.
Is it's almost eerie. It's almost eerie. The fact that you try to speak about something as like it's Point Roberts, where we're acting like this is like some big scandal. It's like it's right here. We could see it on the map. We know it's part of Whatcom County, but you know what? You mentioned in a university assignment, like in my case, they won't acknowledge it. And now you're saying that even those within Washington State just flat out say no. You know what? Point Roberts is doing perfectly fine. Don't look into the budget. Don't look into how we're distributing the taxpayer money coming in from Point Roberts. Don't ask questions. Everything's going all right. I've been there. It's not all right. Everything's overgrown. Everything is quite literally falling apart. I saw three abandoned businesses when we were driving around, and it's just, where is the actual help? It's just, that is mind blowing when you think about it.
Well, yeah, and on your point, you and I can figure it out. You just got here and figured it out. You were here 2 days and you figured it out. I've been here forever, and if I know it, how come you don't? You're the great educators and educated and supposed to be leading the way, and we're showing you the way? This is backwards.
Yeah, you know what? But it's almost embarrassing. I was this huge thing currently going on with the current administration of not wanting foreigners. That's kind of the big thing, shut borders, be careful who you let in, and we don't want foreigners controlling our cities. But here is Point Roberts that relies on foreigners. Um, it's more of a statement I want to throw out there for these people that truly believe, like, oh, hey, America, America first kind of business. How would you say that? How could they help Point Roberts? How can the individual help Point Roberts?
Well, speak to the politicians because I'm a lone voice. The biggest problem too here is with people who, well-intentioned, wish to do something positive and make the awareness, are scared of the border, retaliation, because we see so much of it with ICE and the media and so forth, the rest of the country. Fortunately, not here, at least yet. We're only 1,000 people, so we don't matter in most people's minds in government. They can see as many voters out their bedroom window in their subdivision as there are here, so we don't matter. Uh, and so we're looking at it and we go, the whole country was built on immigration, the whole country. And they're going to feel it again once you're getting rid of them because we're not going to be farming. We're seeing it in Washington State. Farmers who voted for Trump are really hurting. And then on top of that, he gets rid of the labor he's had for 20 years. These aren't fly-by-night people coming in to steal someone's job. He's had them on the payroll. This guy's interviewed from Eastern Washington last week. I think it was in the Cascadia News in Bellingham. And he said, I've had these people 20 years. And now I got no one to go out to the fields, plant, crop, run my warehouses, run my machinery. And then on top of that, he insults Canada, which produces, I think it was 70% of the USA's potash for fertilizer, comes out of Saskatchewan. So now the farmers down south, the USA South, are screaming they can't get potash. I mean, if you and I know better, these are supposed to be the geniuses running the country.
And people believe it. That's the worst part. I was here during the LA ICE riots. So I touched down in LA about 2 days before the whole riots began, and ice was quite literally all over Los Angeles. So we worked with produce, right? We got trucks coming in and out of Mexico with the produce. We hit a massive decline in business because of the tariffs. We saw a huge decline in employment in the market because whether we like to admit it or not, a huge majority of these farmers, especially in California, are of immigrant background. So you attack them, you quite literally attack the hub that feeds you, and so the saying is never bite the hand that feeds you, and that's quite literally what Donald Trump is doing and the current administration. So it's just and
Well, on that point, Frank, you mentioned immigration and so forth. If you look at the president on down through his whole administration, take out the immigrant background people, they wouldn't have wives, they wouldn't have
you wouldn't even have the president. His grandfather was
grandparents, or anything. I mean, what a bunch of hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how to say it. It's just counterintuitive. Donald Trump wouldn't even be in office if we're talking about getting rid of American citizenship because your parents were immigrants, as he's trying to do right now, birthright citizenship. Donald Trump would technically lose his because his grandfather was German. So it's just, it's crazy what's going on, and so that's why I'm hoping that if anyone watches this and if they really do believe in this America first, I believe that the first step is to stop focusing on foreign affairs and where taxpayers go to support another country, but rather start focusing on, escalates like Point Roberts, Angle Point, Harder in Alaska. You got all these escalates that could always use more recognition and more support.
Well, that's basically you're saying what I would say too. Take care of your own first. In fact, I wouldn't even do a space program until I got free health care for everyone in the United States. Take care of your own first. And taking care of them isn't just blocking other people from coming here. It's take care of their health care, take care of their employment, take care of their families. And once you got that, then you can go rocket out to the moon.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, I remember in the book of Point Roberts, a lot of the founders or settlers of Point Roberts were also immigrants from Ireland and Iceland.
Iceland,
Yeah,
Iceland primarily, yeah.
yeah, and they were there during the Great Depression too, and they started their fishing on the Salish Sea, and so
1895, and they were
yeah.
from they were basically 90% of the people that came here were from Iceland, a community, and they were farmers, fishermen, and cattle and chickens, and basically an agrarian concept, and they did really well.
I mean, they did because look at how Point Roberts is right now. You can't really blame the people that live there. I would blame more of the government that's mismanaging it. But Point Roberts, it's kind of like a beacon of hope that it is possible to accomplish things, and it is possible to have a stable exclave if given the proper management.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So we talked about COVID-19, and so a lot of people kind of just forgot about COVID-19. Let's be honest here. People moved on. It's been almost a decade. Um, Point Roberts really hasn't moved on, has it?
Well, we haven't moved on in the sense of recovering. See, as you well know, having been here, we're isolated. We don't have a surrounding network of community. So, like Seattle, for example, you've got all kinds of other smaller towns, Tacoma and everything, all around it. So even if you've got your COVID, you've still got your network of suppliers and builders and people who travel back and forth to work with each other. We got Canada and the border. You close the border, we got nothing. Zero, nothing. We are isolated like an island, a 5 square mile, not even a big island, tiny island. And so we got nothing to support us around us that we can get lumber or tradespeople or whatever we need, appliances. Like we have no department store here. We have no veterinarian here. We've got our list of what we don't have is 10 times the size of what we do have. So that border is critical to us in our survival. Then you turn around, throw the tariffs on it.
Yeah, you're right.
And I know everyone suffers because of that, but add 30% to it. So if you're down half, we're down 80%.
Yeah.
If you're down 20, we're down 50.
I remember my biggest mistake looking back, honestly, was not bringing a camera and just having it strapped to my chest for the world to see. Because we walked at that big store, shelves were empty and things were heavily overpriced. You could just get it for a lot cheaper on the other side. And I don't I it's crazy. Everything was overgrown, it was overpriced, shelves were empty. The boat area, the docking area was just a graveyard of just basically abandoned boats because these people hadn't had time to come back to Point Roberts. As you mentioned, all these people are mostly from Canada, and you just have these boats just sitting there gaining dust. It was empty, empty. And you said during that time it was tourist season, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Normally, there's no normal left anymore, but prior to the March 2020 lockdown, we would go from 1,200 people during the winter and early spring, and mid to late spring, we'd jump to 4,000 people. So you add 75% more to your population. You go from 1,000 to 5,000. And that's huge. And that's when our businesses used to make their money enough to carry them through the next fall winter season. And then without that, we're without that now, like last spring break in Canada, that brought the people down here to open their cabins and get ready for the summer. Nothing. Didn't happen.
I am very hopeful that I could revisit Point Roberts. I definitely feel like last time I was there, it was a bit rushed, just because of being on such a tight schedule. But I do plan to come back one day, and this time, if I do, I'm strapping cameras full 360 all around my body, for the world could hopefully see. I'm by no means necessary, famous or popular, but you know what? I'm interested in Point Robert. I'm interested in its future, and I just want to see better for Point Robert. So I'm hoping that if I shout loud enough, someone will eventually hear.
Thank you very much. I know that many people came to me after I knew about yours when you'd published before, and they came to me and said, "Oh, have you seen Frank's video on Point Roberts?" No, and I hadn't, and so I went on Google, and there it was, or YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that
Um,
this little sequel here could at least, have some sort
well,
of ball rolling.
well, I then took it and I sent it out to 200 people. Your
Yeah.
last one.
Yeah, it was definitely more of a long video, because context matters, at least in the history major, and what I've been learning throughout my years working with professors and journalists is that context matters. And so what better way to give Point Roberts context by explaining the literal entire history of Point Roberts in one sitting, and then interviewing at the time President Cowder. And it's just, hopefully it makes people realize, like, hey, you know what, this town was really made completely by accident. Kind of doesn't deserve what's been going on with it throughout the years. And now that you mentioned Rio Rico, I didn't know that at the time either. And so once I got back and I realized Point Roberts wasn't officially classified as the Whatcom County borders, then I had to go to Rio Rico instead. But I'm hoping that Point Roberts will one day get its recognition it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this kind of effort helps a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm hoping, as time moves on, hopefully we can meet again in person and we could just start figuring things out together. I hope Mr. Oliver really takes consideration my emails. But as what you're saying, probably not. But if he does, because no, I'm here to talk, and I will try to represent Point Roberts as the best as I can.
Thank you very much. And I'm like you. I just keep trying, even if they say no or ignore me or whatever. I just keep knocking on the door,
Yeah.
and sometimes they open.
You got to keep bugging him. That's all it is. But thank you so much Mr. Calder, for everything. Oh, what even happened? So are you retired now from the president of Chamber of Commerce, or someone else got that
Yeah,
role?
I chair of the local Dollars for Scholars program to give our kids a leg up on if they further their education so that they have a chance to get out of here or at least see the world a bit more rather than stuck in Point Roberts. And if they stay here and don't grow academically and or trades, because we'll fund trades as well, and we do 17 kids at $1,500 a year towards their furthering their education. Because if you're sitting here, you're going to wither up as far as expanding your horizons and therefore your income. And it's not great for children. It's great to grow up here by the water and all the rest of those things. But as far as facing the world later, when you're 20 years old or whatever, it's you need that backing of an education and a broader horizon. If they choose to come back after their education, great. But at least they'll come back being able to work tech at home or whatever, remote, instead of pumping gas up the local. Nothing wrong with that, but you should have some options in your life.
Yes, life is definitely more than staying at an exclave and constantly being scared of whether or not you're going to be imprisoned in your own home. So it's always important that children always find a way to move forward. And once they come back, when they come back more strong, more prepared to take on the world, then
Yeah.
I'm sure they will fight for Point Roberts as much as you did. What is your message for people out there, that see this and be like, wow, I would really like to help Point Roberts, but I'm too scared or don't know how to reach to my local politicians. What would be a good way to show support?
Well, I mean, basically, it's to talk it up in a positive way that review where Point Roberts is at. In other words, look at us. Don't just say one size fits all. You've said we're unique, then plead for a unique consideration. Therefore, consideration will give us maybe a solution. But just walking along with the blinders on, it's just going further and further downhill and less viable. Yeah. So we need people to talk it up and be more open with your neighbors and retain that as opposed to losing it because of the political fights that are invented. They don't come from the public. They come from on high. And you've got a bad apple in there rotting the pot because it's not coming from the local people being that vicious and vindictive. We're a common spirit between Washington and British Columbia, between Toronto and Michigan and so forth. That wasn't a fight between the average American and the average Canadian. Hell, we fought world wars together, side by side. In fact, the U.S. wouldn't have done as well without the Canadian fighters and the Brits and the Aussies, which used to be allies. Why not now? Because the States doesn't want us to be allies anymore, or they.
Yeah. I kept looking at your model on the emails you sent right at the bottom. What is it? There's no such thing as bad peace, and there's no good thing as war.
No, no such thing as a good war and no such thing as bad peace.
That's it. That might be the new slogan for campaigning for Point Roberts right there. Just great peace and stability for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cowder, for your time.
Appreciate it, Frank, very much. Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Thank you.
Bye.
Before this video concludes, I would like to formally introduce Point Roberts Dollars for Scholars Foundation. This foundation is a non-profit organization dedicated to helping students in the Point Roberts community achieve their educational goals through scholarships and financial support. The purpose of this foundation, as Brian Cowder mentioned, is to encourage students to pursue a higher education by reducing the financial burdens of college. Through donations and community involvement, the organization raises scholarship funds that are awarded to deserving local students each year. The foundation not only provides financial assistance, but also helps students prepare for future success through community support and educational opportunities. If you got something from this interview and would like to find more ways to support Point Roberts community, the link for Point Roberts Dollars for Scholars Foundation will be in the link in the description. And I really hope you guys at least check it out. Scroll through it, mess around with it. Right there has the whole entire history of the foundation itself, a list of the donors, so they're pretty open about what money is coming in and how it's coming out. As well, you can see the students who actually qualified for this year's scholarships. And so it is just a very open foundation. And I really hope you guys consider checking it out, donating, anything that could help Point Roberts community and declining opportunities. Thank you so much for watching. And I really hope you guys consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.